I'm Mark Ramsey. I'm sitting here with Rick Ducey. Rick Ducey is the managing director of BIA Kelsey. BIA Kelsey, of course, at the forefront of all things revenue for media, from what I can tell. And Rick, you guys have a new report out, and it's called The Internet Radio Revolution Has Arrived. Platforms, Services, Audiences, and Advertisers Reinvent Audio.
Right, exactly.
First of all, welcome, and thank you for writing this report.
Oh, you bet. Thank you so much, Mark. It was a pleasure to be with you.
I'm fascinated by this. First of all, I want to get a sense from you what you think the biggest takeaways showcased in this report are.
Sure, Mark. That's a really good question. And I would frame it, I guess, two ways. Two big takeaways, one kind of comforting, but perhaps one either challenging or exciting to think about what can happen next. So on the one hand, so much has happened in the digital media space. We get so many headlines and so much excitement about the trajectory and momentum and just the quality of life difference all these different digital media have made to us as people. But also in the media business, both on the buy side and sell side, there's some exciting new ways to reach out to and engage with audiences with both entertainment, information, and of course commercial messages that make a big difference to support the whole industry. So for me, a couple big takeaways. One is, with all the challenges that so-called legacy, traditional, offline, linear media have been facing, radio is pretty solid. It has a strong future. As we look ahead in our media forecast, we see over-the-air broadcast radio being a pretty solid part of the media mix, both on a local level and also on a national level. That said, though, digital media are definitely earning their own right at the table, and they're going to be getting an increasing share of the table. Overall, in terms of the media split, our forecast is that digital may grow up to be about a third of media spend over the forecast period that we're looking at, 5 years. And that certainly is going to impact the audio part of the advertising pie as well. So traditional radio, people love it. They're going to keep using it. Obviously, the cube audiences are huge. The average quarter hours audiences are getting challenged a bit by people using other different kinds of audio media. But the spend looks pretty solid. So the second message really is...
Before you get to the second, let me just dwell on that one for a second, Rick, and we'll keep in mind, I want to get back to the second, but you said up to a third of spending in digital. You've got a statistic in your report about audio specifically, and I think it references... I'm not sure what the source is, but it says advertisers will inevitably follow the growing consumer adoption of both broadcasting pure play streaming services, eMarketer. eMarketer forecasts digital radio, streaming and downloadable, i.e. podcasts, will more than double from 2013 to 2018 to capture 21.3% of the overall audio advertising market.
Exactly.
So by 2018, which is only 4 years away, 21% of the overall advertising market, according to that projection, will go to digital audio, which means pure play, any streaming audio provided by broadcasters and podcasting. Is that right?
Exactly right. So a couple, that really sort of gets to my second point too, which was that within the audio marketplace, digital is growing in terms of ad spend. But like you pointed out, Mark, the growth in digital spend in audio is going to not be as fast as it is in the rest of media. So overall, spending, and we track spending in local media, we see that growing up to be about a third overall of spending from national marketers, local and regional businesses, but all in local media, being about a third coming into digital media. But just in audio, it's just about a fifth. So actually, less of the spend is going to be shifting into or growing into digital. It's not necessarily shifting from traditional radio, broadcast radio into digital. So there's a little bit of a buffering advantage for broadcast radio to say, you know what, we see digital's coming. That's our growth opportunity, but it's not coming as fast and as hard for radio as it is for, say, video or some of the other media.
Just to make sure that we're clear on our terms, when we say digital, the advertising for overall audio advertising market, are we talking about advertising across platform controlled by broadcasters and others, or are we talking about audio advertising pure and simple?
I think probably the latter. So there are different definitions out there. In the paper, we had a kind of an operating definition. eMarketer, some of the data we cite from eMarketer uses a slightly different definition. But generally, definitionally, it's any kind of audio experience that gets delivered to the consumer, whether over the air, AM, FM, or internet, and we exclude satellite radio in this analysis. So it's pretty much the internet delivered pure play, like the Pandoras, or broadcast platforms like the iHearts or FM radios, as well as broadcast stations that are simulcast individually.
Okay, I think the reason why that to me is such a big deal is because I think everybody understands that they've got to get in on the digital dollars. Right. Everybody gets that. What's fascinating to me is you're saying that, you know, what was at one point 100% of audio advertising went to broadcast radio. Now it's going to be less than 80% by 2018 is what you're saying in terms of the traditional form of audio. I mean, that to me is just unbelievable, because if ever there were a case that we need to grapple and confront the opportunities and challenges of delivery of digital audio, whether it be streaming, podcasting, or whatever, that's the argument. It's 21% of the entire audio pie, right?
Exactly right. I mean, you've nailed it. And so that is both the kind of the blessing and the challenge, if you will, for broadcast radio. Is pretty solid business model. Advertisers like it, listeners like it, but more dollars are going to be growing into the digital side of audio. Audio is an impactful medium. Radio broadcasters know that. And then you see the Pandoras that are saying, okay, this works really well. We've found, we've cracked the code on how to please listeners and attract a large following. And so they have. The numbers show it. Now they're saying, you know what, the first entry point into the ad market has been national, but they're leveraging their local audiences now by starting to organize around local and regional sales efforts. So that makes sense. So whether those dollars are coming, quote unquote, from broadcast radio or if they're new dollars into the audio space, that's a little hard to parse out. But the bottom line is advertisers are excited about audio advertising, and they're going to be putting more money into the digital side of it over the next 5 years.
I've got to ask you a question about that, because you had a bunch of examples that are going to be impossible to visualize for us on this Q&A, but some unbelievable examples that I had never seen before of ways that advertisers are using in an interactive fashion audio advertising on the small screen. Can you just talk about some of those? It was just amazing to me.
Well, sure. I mean, so one of the battlegrounds, if you will, or environments that make a lot of difference for radio is in the car. So I've had a lot of talk about the connected car, and I know, Mark, you've done a lot of great work on that too. So it's great to get that information out there. But let's just look at the car for a moment as an example. The car has had a lot of high technology put into it lately from the driver and the passenger experience. So one thing is there's a lot of voice interaction. We have laws about using cell phones. You have to use hands-free or speaker phones for cell phones. There's a lot of heads-up displays and multifunctional display screens going on in the car. Well, that's a place where we want to relax, listen to music, but also a place where we want to be informed, get news, traffic, weather, things like that. So the audio industry has come up with some pretty clever interfaces and services to leverage that. So in a report, one of the examples we talk about is this company that really just came up above the radar, Zapp Media, XAPP Media, talking about a new kind of audio ad inventory. And what's interesting about that is there are sort of what we call hands-free listening environments, driving where you by law kind of have to be hands-free, but also on a treadmill at the gym or walking around. So how can somebody interact and get that kind of accountability that advertisers so much like from digital media, audio or otherwise? So you can have a ad that comes up, and in the case of Zapp Media, you can say Zapp Me, and you've already registered and you have your email address on file, so it sends you a coupon, say, to your email address, and there it is. So you have an ad come up. I want to get the directions. I want to get the map. I want to get the coupon. I want to get more information. And there it is. Just interacting kind of with your voice with the audio unit on essentially radio.
Well, wait a minute. So how does that work? You say I'm registered. How am I registered? Where did I get registered? And how does this overlay on top of a typical experience that I might have with a Pandora or a local radio stream?
Exactly. So these kinds of units where you're using digital media, typically you create some sort of a profile, whether it's Google or Pandora or iHeartRadio. You kind of sign up for the service and you have some sort of a handshake there. And the value there is you get the service for free, but it's kind of advertising supported, so it helps create that whole value proposition. So once you get that sync up and you're kind of join that community, then you're allowed to have the kind of power like to interact with the ads and have things happen with using just your voice instead of trying to type something in while you're driving.
And who's using that now? I mean, are broadcasters using that now, or are the Pandoras of the world using it now?
It's really, I mean, the technology is really just coming out into the marketplace. In the paper, Zap Media, we focus on as a few other kinds of examples in connected car things. But Zap Media, for example, just did a deal with NPR just recently. And so we're going to start to see how NPR makes use of that technology service and adds value both to the sponsors in their case and the listeners.
I mean, that's really fascinating because it just seems to me that, of course, I'd want to interact with an ad. If the ad's going to be of value to me, of course, I'd want to interact with it in some way. And if a service like that makes it easy, makes it virtually passive, right? Because now I'm talking at the ad. I'm talking back to the ad.
Right. Yeah, and it's, so the advertising is interesting. We kind of focus on that in a paper since we are looking at the economics for the most part. But that similar technology can also be extended to enhance the listener experience in other ways. There could be some creative elements to that as well. So if you're listening to the news, you could say, "Oh, that's interesting. I want to clip that and have it sent to my email." I know just personally in my family, I tend to read things online on my mobile or tablet device. My wife still likes the old print newspaper, and we get 3 newspapers a day. So a lot of times I'll be reading things on my tablet and say, "Oh, my wife would like to read this," and so I just click on the social button and forward it to her email box, and she loves it. So that kind of capability is great when you're reading things online. Well, now we can use this kind of technology and bring it to the consumer experience in the audio environment as well.
Rick, when I stand back sometimes from the radio industry, I feel like we're focused on many of the wrong things. I mean, I look at this in your report and I say, wow, this is a capability to interact with advertising directly and verbally. And it's going to be 21% of the whole audio advertising pie in 4 years. That's huge. And then I stand back and there's these debates on, what's local? Are we not local enough? Are we too local? And I think, why are we talking about this when we should be talking about increasing the value proposition to the people who come to our audio store every day and making sure those people are as happy as possible so that they keep coming back for more? I mean, what am I missing?
Well, again, you're exactly right. And so that one of the strengths that we see in radio is the local kind of feet on the street. The business model for radio is to have a locally deployed sales force that goes out and has those really high-value customer relationships. That's hard to shake loose. So on the business side of it, radio stations really get it right for selling their traditional product. They're a little bit more challenged to start selling into some of the digital services that are so important these days in the advertising market. The kind of digital agency concept where a particular buyer needs to get a set of services, traditional services key. We see that being the foundation of the advertising mix long into the future, but still the digital part is very important. So there's been a lot of focus by broadcasters on the local end of the business part of the bargain, but the audience also matters. And so we've done several projects looking at this, and local for a lot of radio broadcasters really parses down to personalities. It's our personalities, their blogs, that's the local content, and that's good. But is that really going to be enough going forward to differentiate from other pure play services? Say, so far, it looks like the audiences are holding up. But if you look into the future, how to use different creative possibilities and how to be local, not just in terms of the business side of it, but really more local with the audience, so you can differentiate yourself from national programmers. I think that's going to be a big creative challenge for broadcasters.
Well, the audience is certainly held up in terms of the fact that they're still coming to the store. They're just not frequenting the store as much. Your report highlights that. I've talked about that in the past as well. And that's a big deal because, when I'm coming to the store less and less and less, is there going to reach a point whereby I don't need to come to that store at all anymore because my needs are being satisfied some other way. I want to give you a chance. Is there any other thing that really stood out that you profiled in this report that you think people really don't understand well enough?
It's hard to know what people understand, but I'll say this. Broadcasting, radio broadcasting, and TV broadcasting for that matter, has built up a time-tested business model that's worked for almost 100 years at this point. Broadcasters typically are not used to revisiting their business model. They're competing with industries and people that change their business models, virtually overnight. Mm-hmm. So as sound and stable as a radio broadcast business model is, it is being challenged. And what happens is when you get to a tipping point, one of the things you were saying earlier, Mark, is, in the digital universe, things can tip very quickly. Mm-hmm. For those of us that remember MySpace, that was the social network of the future. It was the killer app. And all of a sudden comes along Facebook. Not so long ago, nobody heard of Yahoo, and now it is the dominant digital player in the marketplace. So radio has an awesome foundation and really well ingrained into its business model in serving advertisers and listeners. But keep a wary eye, because if you're not out there challenging yourself, somebody else will.
Rick, the report is called "The Internet Radio Revolution Has Arrived." It's from BIA Kelsey. For anybody who wants to get the report, what do they do?
They can just go right to our homepage, biakelsey.com, and they'll click on the link there, go to the landing page, and download. It's a free report. Hope you enjoy it.
Rick Ducey, the managing director of BIA Kelsey. Rick, thanks so much for being with me today.
You bet. Thank you so much, Mark.